Hi everybody, this is Warren Herman, and so tonight we're going to be making a video of a kind that I really haven't necessarily made quite yet. And this is how to overcome ulcerative colitis. You know, I think about 10 or more years ago, I got a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. And if you've ever had this type of diagnosis, you'll know that this is an experience that can be quite debilitating. I needed to go to the hospital, get a colonoscopy, and people needed to, try to figure out, I told my parents I was having problems, but, they were like, really? How bad could it be? And then they're like, oh, you're doing really bad. So I had to go to the hospital, and then I was put on certain medications and things like that. But I want to really share some snapshots of this journey with you so that you can come to understand what this is really about, in my opinion. Now, obviously, I'm giving you my take on this. This "Don't Sue Me" is basically the thing. I'm not giving you necessarily official medical advice, but I am sharing my real opinion and my real experience, and I think that I have not experienced through medical or holistic means the correct understandings of what this is all about. And the way that I believe we're going to come down to the truth of what is going on through ulcerative colitis, through this type of experience, is the teachings of two people. And I'm going to mention the main person, really those two really. It's really through the teachings of a guy named Dan Buglio and a pastor named Tom Loud. And so these two people are going to kind of give us some perspectives on what has worked in my experience, and I'm going to explain what has not worked, which is medications, supplements, medical basically, or holistic type doctor type treatments have not really worked. I'm going to explain the ways in which some things that have worked for me, but I think that the real thing about colitis is to understand what it is and where it comes from and all these things. Because when you go to a doctor and they tell you have colitis, they usually say things like it's genetic, it's this type of thing. And the thing we have to remember is that this video is not designed as a personal criticism of any individual doctors. It's really, I think, the fact that the medical field and medical training does not understand where this illness comes from. Because the thing is, obviously, if I get a cut, if I get a cut, and I'm going to explain this, because this is very simple. If I get a cut, I might need a Band-Aid. If I get a really big cut, I might need some stitches. But the thing is that, here comes the dog. If I get a really big cut, I might need some stitches. But the deal is, they've done studies, for example, if they have people relax, and, if people are relaxed when they get an injury, like a minor injury, versus, when they are stressed, there will be a difference in healing. So that should already tip us off to the body's ability to heal. When our body systems are, when we're relaxed, when we're in a good place, mentally and emotionally, our body can do the rest and can heal. As one doctor said, nature, and this is generally true. There may be some other things that could be said about this. He says nature needs no help, just does not need any interference. And so the thing is, a lot of times, if somebody gets an injury, they're really stressed out about it. That interferes with our healing responses because we're all stressed out. So that's not really controversial. And what I'm going to share in this video is not necessarily complex, weird, or controversial either. So, other things also that did not work. So I'm going to explain, let me go through the journey. I'll explain what didn't work. So essentially, I went to the doctor. I had them examine me. They gave me a colonoscopy. They gave me a prescription for a certain medication. So the medication was working. And then I think, and I'm going to say this, charitably, I think the doctor thought I was a young guy and was irresponsible. And so he decided that he would try to like scare me into taking care of myself. So he made sure he said in a like a agitating tone, "You have a serious illness." That's what he said to me in an agitating tone. And I'm not the kind of guy who needs that type of a message. I'm not like a young, irresponsible person. And so I think that he was trying to protect me, but obviously what that did is that actually caused the medication to cease working almost instantaneously. So the medication that was partially starting to work a little bit no longer worked based on the statement given to me by the doctor. So you can see that even in this one vignette, you can begin to see what's really going on. It's what I'm believing. It's what I'm being told. It's my level of stress, agitation, and fear is the cause of the symptom. The symptom is not caused only by some type of physical process. The physical process is the result of a mental process. And so a mental process is holding this in place. So I'm getting this message from the doctor. The doctor's like a hypnotist. He says, you have a serious illness. All of a sudden, bam, I have a serious illness. Now I got to be on even more steroids and all kind of things. So the thing is, the interesting thing is that I took different medications and I developed different side effects of some of these medications. So I took, steroids led me to have side effects of, and we'll talk about these side effects later because there's interesting things about side effects. Side effects of anger. I also, one thing was very humorous with steroids. I think that was in the list of side effects we found later on, said hairiness. Like I got like more hair because the thing was, it ended up that I was on these steroids for quite a while, and so the steroids, they helped for a time, but then I got palpitations and all kinds of stuff going on with the steroid. So that was what I was on for a long time. So what we're gonna do is now, let's fast forward to another episode where I'm feeling ill. There was some times when I was really feeling awful. There was sometimes even where I was sick. I was throwing up. I had sharp, stabbing pains in my stomach. I had all kinds of things going on. And eventually one time I go to the doctor and I think I was feeling pretty bad. I was feeling pretty bad with what was going on. And I told the doctor what was happening. And he actually looked at me. He was like, I guess that he had many worse people that day. He's like, actually, you're not doing so bad. There's a different doctor I went to, it's like, so actually you're not doing so bad, I was like, really? He's like, no, you're not doing bad. You're basically, you're going to be all right. It's all right. You're doing all right. And I was like, oh. And almost instantaneously through his words, completely different result. My symptoms quieted down and I started to be okay. So you can already see where this theme is going. When a doctor says, you have a serious illness, trying to kind of protect me from being an irresponsible young man, then I'm injured, then I'm doing worse. I'm being hypnotized that way. If the doctor says to me, you're doing okay, all of a sudden my symptoms are disappearing. So you can see this theme is beginning to take shape where it's what we're thinking is really affecting what we are doing. And so this is kind of how these things are playing out. So, time went by, I think I basically I took a medication for quite a while, a maintenance medication that seemed to then eventually seemed to have side effects of agitation, confusion. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me and impairing my ability to function until I stopped taking it. I just stopped taking it one time after one of my colonoscopies. I just stopped taking it because I figured, I started to suspect it wasn't helping me and starting to give me side effects. So I just stopped taking it. And amazingly, I was able to I all of a sudden, I joke within 1 week I had a job and a girlfriend, because it was such an impairment from this. So the thing to remember is, sometimes you can be on medications. If you take this route of treatments, with medications, there can be the very severe side effects where you don't even realize what the side effects are. And I'm not suggesting that you go and look up all the side effects of whatever medication that is, because then, as you're going to see later, there's some ways in which your brain can operate on this power of suggestion in a much more problematic way. So, and again, the purpose of this video is to set you free, because or else, your life, if you have something like ulcerative colitis, there's many conditions that operate according to the principles I'm sharing in this video. But if you have a condition like this, you could be held back from everything you want to do in your life, and you could be suffering and having this terrible time. But if you understand the principles in this video, you can have your life come back. You can recover from the fear of the symptoms. You can recover from the false beliefs about the symptoms. You can recover from these things, and by recovering from those things, your body will follow. And here's the thing, so eventually time goes by, I stop taking these things, these medicines, and then, we're going to try to now talk about something that's going to lead us into, I watched some things about like mind-body stuff. And let me tell you this, because before we go to any of the mind-body stuff that I started watching, I want to tell you about the other physical treatment that I did. The other physical treatment I did was I went to a more of a naturopathic type doctor, and I went to this appointment, and he told me many things that he told me some things that made a little bit more sense than what I heard from the medical doctor, and I'll explain why. And I'll also explain why I no longer believe that perspective either. Because the thing that's interesting is that when the doctors hear, you have colitis, say, oh, it must be genetic, except that nobody else in my family has this problem. It's like they give a natural explanation, but I really think the thing is because the medical field does not understand the condition. And I really say that with complete sincerity. I do not believe that the medical field understands what ulcerative colitis is and its origins. And because they don't understand its origins, they kind of come up with whatever the natural origin of something could be, which is genetics, or of course, but that's like saying your body has a problem because your body has a problem. It's really not that advanced of an explanation, although it sounds profound. But I don't think that it is a real explanation. I don't think that there's really anything to that, because I just don't think it's true. So I went to this guy, and he recommended that I take certain supplements, and of course these supplements are very expensive. These are very expensive supplements, and it's not that I'm saying that this guy is fraudulently creating things. I believe that this guy is, and it was interesting because he had recovered from ulcerative colitis himself, so he was very so I believed him in what he was saying about things, and he talks about what he does in a flare and whatever, and he gave me certain recommendations to avoid certain foods and to take these supplements. And now, of course, his recommendation with avoiding certain foods was better than what I heard from the medical doctors, because the medical doctors are telling me eat a low fiber diet, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? And it seemed like, he would get these lists, and it'd be really kind of, it almost, maybe I was dense in the head about this, but it never really seemed clear what I was supposed to be avoiding. It just seemed like you basically weren't allowed to eat anything. And it basically became this thing of well, what am I supposed to eat? And I ended up being reduced to eating, at one point when I was really ill, I had been reduced to basically eating ramen noodles for this. But this was just for a recovery period that was pretty intensive. I was eating ramen noodles and sponge cakes that were from Walmart or something. And then the other times it was I was basically for years, I'm well, what am I supposed to eat? I was basically buying sliced chicken from the deli and some cheese and some tortilla wraps, and I was making that in the microwave. So it was but it was just what is this food that I'm supposed to be avoiding? So I'm following this medical advice of don't eat anything, and before you know it, it's just confusing. You don't even know what you're not supposed to eat, what you're supposed to eat, because then you're just okay, and you're eating basically nothing, but eating the same thing, and it just didn't make any sense. So I'm doing this and I'm not getting any better. So the thing is, one day I just said, like, I just don't care anymore. And so it was around when one of my great aunt, Mildred, who unfortunately passed away recently, we were visiting her when she had moved in down here, and the place where she moved into gave her like all these different like snacks to eat when she moved in. It was like a retirement home type place. And they had like sun chips and all these different types of things that were like rough things, and like a sandwich and grapes. And I just said, I just don't care like basically it's like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I mean, I'm just not following these recommendations from the doctors because I'm not getting better eating this low fiber diet, because I can't even figure out what's on it and what's not on it. And I'm just sick. I'm just kind of sick at a low level the whole time. So, I mean, I was managing, I was able to go places and like do whatever I had to do, but it still wasn't getting better really. So I just said, all right, I'm just not doing this anymore. And I ate all this food that was like not in this realm of what I was supposed to eat, and instantaneously I was cured. Like, I literally had no more symptoms that day. I was like, what? Like, when I stopped believing the idea that I was told that I needed to eat this diet, all of a sudden I no longer have symptoms. And it lasted for a little while. Like, I was like, what? Like, this is weird. So again, you're starting to see this theme of like, we're starting to see, okay, if the doctor tells me you have a serious illness, all of a sudden I'm ill. The doctor says, another doctor says, actually, you're doing okay. All of a sudden, I'm doing okay. I'm following the belief, I can't eat anything, and I'm staying sick. And then I'm believing I don't care, but I'm just eating everything. All of a sudden, my symptoms are disappearing. So you can see very clearly that what is believed, what is understood, or what is being practiced is clearly impacting the symptoms much more than what I'm doing on a physical level. Now, so this is kind of an interesting part of the journey. But then it begins, and I think I saw some things about like some mind-body stuff. I used to practice some different things also. I don't endorse these practices anymore. I don't think you should do them. I used to do things like with like some energy work and some things like that, and that didn't help either. That didn't help. That did not help. That didn't help either. I don't endorse that, but it didn't help anyway. So that was back in the day when I was kind of into that type of thing years ago. So again, really the medical stuff. And then I was leading up to it. I went to this more holistic doctor. He gave me the supplements. I was taking these supplements, and he said avoid these certain foods, like these certain things could do it. And he made this whole diagram. He had this diagram of like different digestive pathways, and it was actually much more scientific in a way than what I was seeing from just in general. I'm not criticizing the medical doctor, I mean, maybe I could have asked him some more science questions about it, but it just seemed like there was more like, okay, this pathway and that, and this food does this, and this supplement will do this thing and that thing, and you're having a problem with this and that. I said, okay, yeah. And then I was taking a probiotic, and the thing, so this is, something that I think is very, I got into this stuff, and I was doing like, okay, I don't think I was doing great in any way. So just kind of going along, I think, with that. And then, the other thing to remember is that you can see when that the doctor's words struck fear into me that I had something wrong with me, that's when the symptoms went up. When I had greater stress, it went up. And you have to remember that when I started having these symptoms, I just graduated college. I was like transitioning into like, I was living by myself in a house, like, that my parents were going to retire to this house. So I was living there by myself, going to go to grad school. So it's probably a lot of like a transition, that, okay. So there may have been some stress with that. And I think my grandmother had passed away. So I don't know what was affecting me the most in that mix there, but it could have been, there were probably some things that could have been just a little bit stressful with this transition to, being, in the next phase of life, so to speak. So that was when it had started. But, so I'm going along. I took some of these supplements, and every now, I think I had one time watched something from a guy who was talking about, his name was Dan Buglio, and I had seen some things from him, at one point in my, what do you call it? In my life, and I also had seen things, and I mentioned the name Tom Loud. So my faith, I'm a Catholic. Tom Loud is a Protestant pastor, and I'd seen some videos from him about praying for people for healing. I think, I don't know if it was him or I had seen things from a guy named Todd White. And I don't obviously endorse everything these guys might say doctrinally because I'm from a different faith. But the thing is, these guys are very confident. They're very sure of themselves. They really reach out to lots of people in like a setting where it's like a big, in the streets. They go right up to people who are suffering and they pray for them for healing. And they seem to always have these miraculous results. And a lot of times when people watch those type of things, they are not going to believe that at all. And so that's the thing, that when you're watching this, I'm not like, a lot of people don't believe that kind of thing. They see, the person prays, and also the person gets rid of their cane. They don't believe that. But, this is just something that I watched a while back. I was interested in that kind of thing. I was interested in, because it's like, wow, that seems like these guys seem to be getting this results. What is this about? And I was interested in that. Probably because I was sick. I was interested in this because I was much more in other spiritualities back in my life at other points. So I must have been interested in that because of my illnesses or something, because I watched some videos of that. But this brings me to the big transition. And in order to understand the big transition in my life, there's these seeds, or these had been planted. Like, I've probably seen some from Dan Buglio. I probably had seen some things from the kind of stuff Tom Loud had done. But I hadn't put two and two together yet. But what happened was, although, we talked about when I had this perceived danger from the doctor, telling me that I had a serious illness, I also had perceived danger issues in a lot of other areas of my life, and I didn't understand what they were. I think also that the medication I was on for the intestines brought this to another level too, because some of the things were agitation, confusion, they had like depression, rage, agitation, every type of bad emotion you could have was supposed to be a result of this medicine that I was on. So I would always have I have this thing of like second guessing myself. Some of you may have heard of religious scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is kind of something that you could affectionately call it a religious OCD, where you kind of are always worrying, like, did I do something wrong? Did I sin? What's happening? And you're always and you also start to believe the different thoughts, and it's not obviously something that's endorsed by any religion, and many people of different religions experience it. It's not caused by the beliefs of the religion. It's so for example, somebody who's Jewish might be terrified of, if they're following kosher, they might be terrified of mixing together forbidden things in their food. They might say, I'm like someone who's practicing Judaism would say, okay, I have this pot for something that has dairy in it. I have this pot for something that has meat in it, and they're not going to worry in an obsessive way about whether they're going to have those things mixed together in some secret way that they don't know. But if you have scrupulosity, it's going to attach to that. If somebody is Protestant, they're going to say the sinner's prayer over and over again. Maybe I wasn't saved the first time I said it. They're gonna doubt themselves and say that. A Catholic is gonna go to confession over and over again. It's however, it's like that perceived danger. You perceive the danger, and then you got to do something, either mentally or or whatever, in order to deal with it. So it's a form of it operates like an OCD, if that is helpful to understand it. But the thing that's key to this is understanding that it's about perceived danger. So for example, the reason why someone develops this is they become terrified. So for example, if we're going to talk about my issue specifically, we'll talk about religious scrupulosity and ulcerative colitis. And the reason why I'm bringing this together is because you can't understand how I recover from one or I recover from the other. And understanding the recoveries will show you that the actual issue is fear. The actual issue is not so much what the symptoms are, whether they are mental symptoms, emotional symptoms, or physical symptoms. The recovery is the same, and it is the recovery from fear. And that's all that is necessary in order to find this kind of freedom. And it's really going to, I believe that it's going to be able to, if you understand these principles, if you watch videos from Dan Buglio, if you watch videos from Tom Loud, I may not, endorse everything theologically he says. I may have some slight differences in method. I may have something, who knows? I generally agree with what Dan Buglio says, in a general way. So, but if you do these things, your life is going to be able to change it. You're going to be able to recover. So, and the reason why I'm saying that is because, like, just a few weeks ago, just a week or so ago, I took a steroid again I was having a flare up or whatever, and then I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna not take the steroid. I'm letting that go. I'm just gonna watch some videos from Dan Buglio. And now my flare-up is gone because I wasn't believing that it was bad. I didn't react, and I felt peace. My body stopped. You feel like that body stopped inflaming itself, because you realize that if you don't buy in to the narrative, if you don't say, "Oh, there's something wrong with me," you will then actually cure yourself, because your body will cure itself, because the thing is, it's not generating the type of chemicals that are leading you to have problems with digestion, because your body is in rest and digest instead of fight or flight. And it's based on how you believe about these things. And I'm going to talk more, and that's why I'm making this video now, because I want to share that win with you, so you can see that, hey, it is possible to recover from these things. And so let's scroll back. I'm sorry that I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I want you to understand why I'm going to be sharing the different things that I'm sharing, because the thing is, ultimately, these things are recovery from fear. And the way that I learned to recover from fear with my ulcerative colitis was about learning to recover from fear with my scrupulosity. So obviously, one of my fears with scrupulosity was I was just afraid of having, inappropriate, so for example, like, if I knew somebody and I was like, oh, like, that person's my friend, I shouldn't want to marry her because she's like, let's just say, like, an example, like, it'd be wrong for me to, like, suddenly want to marry my friend. That would be immoral, because she's like, let's say that she's either getting married or is married or something. And so I'd be like, oh no, I hope I'm not attracted to this person, like, who's my friend. And then I'd be so afraid of that it would seem like those thoughts would, like, pop into my head. I'd be like, oh no, does that mean I'm really thinking that? And it's like, no, it just was that I was like, when you have a stress ball and you squeeze that stress ball with your hand, it's like you can see, like, all the little round things that are inside that stress ball. Sometimes they have these types that are kind of like a not so clear, and then you squeeze on it and you can see those little marbles that are inside of it. And it's kind of, your unconscious mind is like that. So when you put that pressure on yourself to not think of something, then those thoughts pop into your head. And then you think that because those thoughts pop into your head and you have some type of feeling response to them, that you want to have whatever thought that is, whether you're afraid of judging someone, whether you're afraid of being attracted to your friend, whatever it is, whether I'm afraid of getting attracted to my female friend or whatever, or whether I'm thinking of judging that person because of like some random thought pops in, why would I judge that person, based on this reason, or why am I thinking that suspicious thought about that person? Why am I doing this? Oh, that's wrong. It's because you're afraid of having that thought. And so you're putting that pressure on yourself and it's popping up. So then you think, because you have those feelings move toward it, you think your will move toward it, and you think you did it. And so then you think that you want that thought, and then you think you're bad, then you think you've sinned, and then you start to worry and say, oh, did I sin or did I not sin? And then because you're so stressed out, your frontal lobe starts turning off and you don't know what happened. You're like, wait, let me review that memory. I'm not sure. What did I do? Did I do something wrong? And then you try to figure it out. And so the thing is, that's how it goes. But the thing is that you then start to make these associations. Just like, that doctor said you have a serious illness, I started to think certain things were dangerous. So I started to say, okay, well, Like, so for example, if I was worried I'm attracted to my friend, then I think my friend is dangerous. Then I try not to look at her face. Then I try, I try to look at the ground, whatever it is, and then before you know it, it's just taken off because something is scary to you. It's like whatever that thing is, you become afraid of it. You avoid it. And then you're doing that. It's just like, I said, oh, I got sick when I ate a banana that gave me colitis. Then you say, oh, I can't eat bananas. And before you know it, you're avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. Before you know it, you're like me. You're eating only, you're only eating like, what do you call it? You're only eating like a tortilla with a piece of chicken in it, or you can't live. So, and you're not getting better anyway. So the thing is, avoidance is not, necessarily your friend most of the time. That type of emotional avoidance, that anxious avoidance, is not usually your friend. There's different ways we could talk about how to use different ways of these things, but the teachings of Dan Buglio will explain to you how to how to reintroduce foods. Like if your thing is colitis like that, or if it's like, so some other people have things like with back pain or these type of things, but all these things are based on the body, like clenching up, like because you're stressed, different things in your body turn on, different processes turn on and off, different muscles clench here and there, and it's really the response that your body is having to your stress and your beliefs that's causing these things. Just like, it's not that seeing my friend makes me be like, ooh, like, and be disturbed. It's not that eating a food makes me be disturbed. It's that it's my beliefs and my fears and those type of things. And the recovery is from fear. And so in order to get to the point where I tell you how this worked, I was actually really struggling with this idea of like these, my religious scrupulosity. And I remember one day I was just like, and obviously you might be watching this video, you could be of different faiths, whatever. So I'm just sharing, this is my experience. And of course, I believe that my religion is true. I mean, I'd be an idiot if I didn't believe my own beliefs, that'd be dopey. But, but I'm sharing this especially to show you, what it was like for me to go through this experience and how honestly it went for me. And I was suffering with these thoughts, and I said, okay, God, I can't do this. This may not be the best way to pray, but maybe it was honest, and I think it may have been helpful in some way, So I got on my knees, and I was like, I spoke to God for like 2 or 3 hours, and not because I was very religious, but because I was like, God, I hate my mind. I hate how everything works. I hate how I think. I hate how I feel. I hate how this is working. I hate this. And I was just like, over and over again, I was just like, this is terrible. I can't keep going like this. And basically what happened the next day is, for some reason, I felt like I should watch this video about hypnosis. And for some reason, something went off in my head that I realized that I was basically like hypnotized into all these fears. So I would be like, okay, if I was, let's use the example of my, let's say, okay, I'm afraid that I'm going to be attracted to somebody who's some girl who's my friend, but I feel like I should just be her friend. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, her face generates attraction. I'm afraid of that, and so I'm like, oh no, let me not look at her face, because the face generates attraction. That just happens. That's the way the mind is. And all of a sudden I realized, well, what if it's all hypnosis? What if it's all trances and suggestions? And all of a sudden, I met somebody, right after I had this thing, I watched this video, and I met someone who you could objectively say was attractive looking, and it was amazing. I had no attraction to this person, nothing, there was no fear. And I was set free, because it was no longer that I no longer believed that the face could generate attraction. I now understood that this was a process. I was able to see through, okay, I'm afraid of the face I'm afraid of being attracted to the face. I might think the face looks nice and symmetrical, whatever it is. But the thing is, these type of things, I wasn't getting caught up in the hypnosis anymore. I wasn't getting, because you could even see, this is just an aside, but you could see people wear earrings, people, people in every culture, there's different things that are beautiful, so to speak. There's different forms of decorating oneself, and all these things are like hypnotic cues. And we say we fall in love. It's like a trance, it's these things are trances. And I came to realize that it was like I didn't have to buy into the trance. Like, and if any trance was beginning, it was just a beginning of a trance, and it didn't matter, and all of a sudden it all turned off. And it was amazing to be set free from this. And in the moment, I started to realize the similarity of this. I was watching these videos about hypnosis, and there were some guys who were talking about hypnosis and healing, and hypnosis and getting rid of pain. And then all of a sudden I remembered the things from Dan Buglio, and I also, one thing led to another, and I realized that the things of the street healing guys like Tom Loud, like Todd White, these kind of guys, I was like, wait, all this stuff starts to sound the same. And so then I went and I started watching these things. I started watching, things from Dan Buglio more. I started watching these things from Tom Loud, and it was amazing to realize eventually, because it was almost like I was hearing the same type of messages from these guys who are these Christian street healers as I am from Dan Buglio, who's talking about this idea of TMS, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But it's amazing to see the same message in a way. Like Dan Buglio is saying, okay, you need to give your brain consistent messages of safety. Tom Loud is telling the body, Dan Buglio says, okay, tell your brain, we're okay, it's going to be all right. Tom Loud is literally and I don't necessarily know if this is the best way to do this. I think I do it slightly differently if I pray for someone today. But he would literally speak to the injury, speak to the pain. He'd be like, okay, pain, go away now. And he would tell it to go. And a lot of times it would go. And it was amazing that there was a similarity. Like Dan Buglio is saying, give yourself a message of safety. And Tom Loud is like giving this direct message to the body, and this type of thing like that. Or Dan Buglio says you basically have to have your mindset down. You have to have this kind of unshakable belief that you have TMS, that you don't have, and I'll explain that in a minute. You have TMS, and you don't have anything really wrong with your body. And in the same way, Tom Loud is talking about like understanding your authority, understanding your identity, like having this clear picture, this clear understanding of who you are and what you can pray for, and not being scared, not letting your mind be scared. And Dan Buglio, at the beginning of every video, he takes a nice deep breath to kind of have that message of safety. And Tom Loud, when he prays for somebody, he said, now just relax and receive. Just that message of safety. It's like, and I'm not saying that only that the prayer is the same thing as the TMS treatment, but I'm going to explain how these things connect, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more as we go forward. So what am I talking about with this thing with TMS? And the thing is, if you have ulcerative colitis, unless you ate a bowl of barbed wire, I'm saying, I don't believe that it's due to something that's medical in its origin. TMS was invented by a guy named Dr. John Sarno, and Dr. John Sarno talked about how people, he originally was treating back pain, and he was talking about how, people are kind of like keeping their emotions in, and essentially what's happening is parts of the body are getting tense in your back because of the kind of this pain is coming from this repressed emotion, and so he talked about this kind of thing, and he got this whole thing started. And there's many other people. I've heard names like I guess Nicole Sachs, Dr. Schubner. I've heard these different names, and Dan Buglio is the guy that I primarily follow in the TMS space. And TMS stands for tension myositis syndrome or something like that. And then they made it the mind-body syndrome. And as Dan Buglio eventually said, too much stress, so that's kind of the definition of this. But to remember that really it goes back to the very first thing we put in this video, which is this idea that when you are in a stressed out state, your non-essential body processes and all these things are going to be suppressed because you're in fight or flight. You're geared up. So the thing is that it's just like, that study at the very beginning of this video where they had the person get an injury. Some people were injured slightly, like they injured somebody's arm, their skin on their arm slightly, and then they had other people relax while they did it. And the people who relaxed, they healed quicker. So the whole thing is understanding this principle. And the way that we relax is by understanding there's nothing wrong with it. Because if I go through this and the doctor tells me you have a serious illness, my medicines stop working and I'm ill. A lot of times I actually believe that if the medicines work, it's because you believe they will and you believe you're safe. So I actually think that I probably think that most healing in this area is probably mostly placebo. Not that that's bad, because, I think that the truth is that the healing is based on your belief, because the belief leads to a sense of safety and leads the body to naturally anti-inflame itself. Now, so what happened? So, sorry, I got a little something there. What happened? The thing is that, there is this, so I learned this material. I also realized this thing, and I was watching these videos because I'm doing better with my mindset now, with my religious scrupulosity, because when I'm not afraid of people's faces, I'm doing much better. So have freedom there, and then I realize these principles, and then I'm like, wait, this is the same thing the healing guys are doing. And so I watch these videos with Tom Loud, and I'm watching him do these like street healing things where he's just telling people's body parts to be healed, and they're just like doing fine and getting out of wheelchairs and stuff like that. And he's not like, and the thing that's really important to remember about this is that Tom Loud is, his videos, you can watch all his videos on YouTube. And it's not like he's like he's not like doing this on stage. Like he's not like, this is not like a stage type thing. He's just walking up to people in a street. And he has tons of videos all around the world where he does this. And obviously people can doubt that this is really happening. But the thing is, I'm watching this thing and I decide to let me try this on myself. Let me tell my intestine to function. So I told my intestine to function. I was like, I command you, be healed right now in Jesus' name. And all of a sudden I felt something a little weird. And then all of a sudden I was cured literally for months. Like I was cured for about, 3 months. I just stopped. I didn't count because I figured it was just done. And it was bonkers because it was almost like, I'm pretty sure like my symptoms disappeared pretty much instantaneously. And, but we can see again, you see, here's the thing. I want to stress a principle from St. Thomas Aquinas where he says, grace builds upon nature. And the thing is that it's not so much that I'm saying that I'm not trying to explain what Dan Buglio is saying spiritually, nor am I trying to explain psychologically what Tom Loud is doing. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say that these two processes are a faith-based or a spiritual version of it, and then there is a natural version of it. And one builds on the other, and the principles included in the natural one are also included in the spiritual one. And you can't separate them either. You can't remove the natural from the spiritual, unless you just like, okay, I pray for somebody, and all of a sudden they're healed without them even hearing me pray for them instantaneously. Then it would be more of a, then we have the ratio is more spiritual versus physical. But again, I want to share this with you because this is interesting. So I had this experience, and all of a sudden I was doing okay. But of course, I'm like freaking out a little bit because I'm like, okay, I guess this stuff works. And I'm watching these videos from Tom Loud, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I see people all the time who have, walking with canes, all this type of stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, if this worked on me, maybe I should try this on someone. And so I'm like, okay, I have to get up the guts to do this. And I was really like hesitant, and I still am. And I think I shouldn't be as hesitant as I am. I think I should do this more often, but I get like a little bit obsessed on it. I'm like, do I have to pray for every person? And I get a little in my head about that. Like, do I have to pray to every person I see who has an illness? Do I have to do all this? And so I get a little obsessive about that still. So that's what messes with me today about it. But anyway, that's aside the point. So I'm at this place where I'm talking, I'm at this place where I'm walking around, and I'm speaking with this lady who I know is walking around with a cane. And so she's walking around with a cane, and they're really, I'm thinking, okay, I gotta pray for this lady because we're having a nice time, we're talking, so the thing is like, I mean, it's not like I'm just like ambushing her out of nowhere. So I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna bring myself to do it. So ultimately what happens, I pray for her knee one time. I tell the knee like to be healed. All of a sudden, I'm like now check it. And all of a sudden she just like runs up this hill. And she just like, I actually do have a video right after this where she does talk about this experience. Of course, I wasn't going to film it while I was doing this. It's my first time doing it. And she just like runs up this hill. I'm like, well, maybe don't stress test it like that, And the thing is, she actually got rid of her cane. Like I understand you may think I'm a fraud. You may think I'm lying to you. She got rid of her cane. Her name's Janice, by the way. She was in a few videos, and I actually ran into her. I actually ran into her, and we did this process again with her foot pain. At the same spot, years later, and she was really, enthused about it, and there's actually a video that I made of the actual time that we did pray for her foot, and the pain disappeared from her foot. So the thing is, we're starting to see these kind of changes, and the thing is, and obviously, this is not about like that I have some weird ability to heal people. It's just that I saw that this is possible. I'm starting to understand these perspectives. Actually, the first time I did this was actually with one of my friends. I was like, wait, I think I understand how this works, like from a psychological perspective, with all these things with hypnosis. And I bet like if I brought this like prayer into it, I bet it would work. And so I had this confidence that it would work. And I prayed for my friend's knee. I was like, I have to go to work, but like, do you want me to remove your knee pain right now? And she's like, okay. And so we prayed and her knee pain went away. So, it's like, that was the first time that I did it actually. So the thing is to realize that once we understand these things, it's not about having some type of gift or power. It's just about having the right, accurate knowledge. It's about having the right understanding. And this is what Dan Buglio speaks about too. It's about understanding, okay, yeah, like this can happen. And once you've seen this type of stuff happen, you then have a lot of confidence because you're like, okay, like this does happen, And then you can kind of almost play with it. You'd be like, okay, you want to see your knee pain disappear? Like the person's like, what? No. But you could kind of play with it if you want, So, it's, and it's not like, I'm not saying it works every time, but it has worked, I would say with this type of thing. I think it's important for me to state this. I think I've seen this when I used to force myself to do it. I should be trying to do it more now, because now it's warm again and there's people around, where I could do this. And, but the thing is that when I would do this, I think we saw maybe 30 people have an improvement. I think I remember like 30 people had an improvement and like 9 people didn't. But the thing is that, but it's weird to be able to just like see this happen. But the thing that's important to understand is that we have natural principles and some prayer type principles and faith-based principles. But the thing is that these things can overlap with each other. So going back to our recovery story from ulcerative colitis and scrupulosity and how they kind of interface with each other, I finally purchased Dan Buglio's course, his course on TMS and everything. And I watched some of the videos and, I was starting to have a little bit of problems, with my, my eyes again, so to speak, with my fear of being attracted to my friends and so on and so forth. And so I watched his course about not being afraid of your thoughts, not being afraid of your feelings. And I watched through his whole course while I was driving to my friend's party, and boom, it was like all of my, all my fear or all of my agitation about talking to my female friends that were there was just gone completely. And I could just look people right in the face. I had no problems that whole party. It was a nice, I think it was, I don't know if it was, maybe it was a birthday party, I don't know what it was, but it was just a nice party. We were all sitting around talking, and I was able to talk to everybody without any problem whatsoever. And it was based on the same principles. And I realized that this experience I had where learning, I was kind of hypnotized, and this understanding of, with Dan Buglio's stuff, I started to understand that this type of stuff is all the same type of thing, but Dan Buglio's, I believe, teaches this kind of like this, like, and as Dan Buglio would say, he doesn't teach that spiritual side to it. He teaches, like physical and mental safety. You kind of, Take a nice deep breath as he does in his videos. Give that message of safety on a physical level. That message of safety on a mental level. You understand what TMS is. You understand how your body's just freaking out. Of course, if you watch the things with Tom Loud, you can find ways to bring a type of a spiritual statement of healing. And I think that obviously there's ways that then like some stuff can really kind of do some even stranger things and some faster things. But the thing is, some people, there's some people that even talk about Dan Buglio's work, like he'll be saying something like there's nothing wrong with you. And, people can describe, there's ways that his work, people talk about book cures, oh wow, there goes an owl. People talk about book cures, there's things that, if you read a book like from Dr. John Sarno, you read a book from him and all of a sudden people get cured instantaneously. This is very similar to Tom Loud coming up to someone and saying like knee, be healed now. And I'm not saying that's exactly the way I say it right now, but he'll do stuff like that and all of a sudden the person's healed. All of a sudden the person reads the book and they're healed because they get this kind of new information, this kind of new belief. That's what kind of changes the game. And so that's something that I think is really important. And it's really important to understand this because, you see, the thing is, I believe that Dan Buglio's teaching is the natural foundation for which Tom Loud's practice of street healing prayer or anybody's practice of street healing prayer. And I believe Tom Loud is one of the best, or probably is the best teacher of street healing prayer that there is right now, just because it's just so simple. There's not like, okay, you have to feel anything. It's just so simple the way he teaches it. And I think that I kind of do it. And again, I think I've seen almost 30 things like that. I have to get back into it, I guess. But I just kind of put like, what I'll do is I just kind of, and I've made videos about this. I just take out, I just usually take out my rosary or something, and I just put it on a person's shoulder, and I say, thank you for this person. Thank you that right now you care about. Thank you that you're healing them right now. Thank you that the pain goes right now. Thank you, Blessed Mother, that the pain is gone. And then I just kind of relax. And I just kind of rest. And I say, okay, now just relax. And I say, now check the pain. And usually we rate the pain before, okay, scale of 1 to 10. And then, then they have them, check afterward. And usually there's a significant change. Again, but if you see this, it's kind of this level of safety. And somebody might say, and I've always struggled with this. I said, okay, like, is this psychological or is this spiritual? Well, grace builds upon nature. I can't separate out the fact that, there's going to be some type of a TMS cure when I'm giving a message of safety. If I'm telling somebody that their pain's going to go, that's a message of safety. I can't get rid of the natural effect and only isolate the supernatural effect. Maybe the only way you could do that, like I said, is like you pray for somebody, they don't know that you're praying for them, all of a sudden they're cured. Okay, then it's all supernatural and none of it is any of the fact that you're there reassuring them, But the point is, why separate it? Why not, why not have the most effect and be in the presence of somebody, really reassure them and help them? And I believe that, this understanding of TMS really helps understand illness, really helps understand things. I think that these understandings of these street healing things and TMS perspectives are really helpful to understand that. The other thing too is, I really think that Dan Buglio's teaching on TMS and perceived danger pain, he calls it PDP, because he progresses, I believe, in the field of TMS by calling it what it is, PDP, perceived danger pain, or PDS, perceived danger symptoms. And I believe that ulcerative colitis is a perceived danger symptom. And, and I definitely, like I said, within the last week, I followed the recommendations, which are like the recommendations to stop the medical treatments, stop taking the supplements. Like, that's why I don't take probiotics. I mean, I randomly take turmeric without any intention of dealing with the colitis at all. It's just there. I just take it because it's there on the table and it's supposed to be healthy or whatever. But the thing is, I don't really use it. I don't use it to help my colitis. Because I don't have colitis. I have PDS. I have perceived dangerous symptoms. The only thing I need to recover from is fear. And then my body will take care of itself. And I can do that through these mental reassurances, or I could do a spiritual reassurance. Like I could pray for myself, like with the way that I guess I did that first time where it disappeared. These are the things that we can do, but it's understanding these processes that can change our life, because our life can just be wrecked if we live out of these things. And the thing is that if we think about PDS, this is a revolutionary concept. And I just want to really congratulate and promote the work of Dan Buglio, because his work has really revolutionized my understanding. My understanding of, and this, none of this is therapy. None of this is a therapy recommendation. This is my personal opinion here. I'm not speaking as a therapist or as anything like that. Don't sue me, so on and so forth. But the thing is, it has revolutionized my understanding of mental illness, mental health, these type of things, because I've had to read different books. It shows me that, for example, if you read the theories of Lance Dodds with addiction. So, for example, you say, okay, I can't tell my boss that I don't like staying overtime at work. And then that means that the person then runs out to the bar and drinks. So the thing is, his theory of addiction is that we can't win. We see our brain perceives that we can't win in a direct manner, so it makes us think over and over again about some indirect means of getting what we want. That's an addiction. Well, guess what? That's the same thing as an intrusive thought. That's the same thing as fear. That's the same thing as PDS, perceived danger. I can't yell at my boss about the fact that I don't want to work overtime, so I work overtime and then I go out to the bar to compensate for it. It's just the same thing. It's the same type of thing. We can understand depression, suicide, OCD, anything. We can kind of put it into this model of, okay, here's the perceived danger, here's the symptom. Think about suicide. Suicide works the same way. If somebody has that urge, the thing is, because they talk about in suicide treatment, there's drivers, there's things where you're like, okay, I never feel that there's a way out. Okay, this seems like a way out. That's the thing. It's like perceived danger symptom. You feel trapped, you need to get out. Feel trapped at work, you go to the bar. It's all these type of things. So we have to understand the deep utility of this type of thing. People can, and the thing to remember is, I brought up these things with the scrupulosity and all that, and you saw how the Dan Buglio approach also helped with that. So this thing is to realize that TMS is really a broad thing. It can have so many different manifestations. I've also seen this manifestation as a thing that kind of latches onto people discerning their religious vocation. Sometimes people can get that amplification. They could say, oh, I'm really afraid of having kids, so okay, I want to be a priest. Or somebody might say, oh, it's really dangerous. If I became a man is something that, let's say somebody, grew up in a bonker's home, they're like, oh, I don't want to be a man. So they may say, oh, I want to be, I want to be a priest because I don't want to be a dad, because let's say, oh yeah, my dad, he did this and that. So whatever it is, perceived danger can lead someone to think about an escape. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you, it's kind of like, when you're selling something, the person says, oh, for a limited time only. You're like, oh, I better buy that. Doesn't mean that you don't actually want to be a priest. Doesn't mean you don't actually want to be a nun. But in these things, in my experience, there's a lot of people who are really obsessed, and they're really in an OCD, in a religious scrupulosity, in this kind of obsessive mode with their feelings about, oh, okay, I have to figure out what I'm going to do, because this discernment becomes like an obsession, and it just has to do with this perceived danger symptom. I have to know this answer right now. So then they can't know because they're confused, because their brain is bugging out. So the thing is to realize we got to purify ourselves of fear. We got to, because we don't want to make a decision because, oh, I'm scared of this, so I'm going to do that, or I don't like this, so I'm going to do that. We want to do what makes sense for us, what God wants us to do, so on and so forth. We don't want to act at a perceived danger. And that, of course, we want to have prudence. Of course, we want to have these type of things. And, but I think that I'm going to close on this note. So the thing is, if you want to recover from ulcerative colitis, if you want to recover from perceived danger symptoms, I want you to go over, I'm going to probably put links to this. I want you to start watching Tom Loud's videos. And I don't endorse everything he says theologically. I really don't agree with his interpretations of scriptures and so on and so forth, but the psychological or spiritual principles behind how he's saying things are usually okay. But, but I think that he's really making a great contribution to people with those aspects of healing that are good there. Same thing with Dan Buglio. Dan Buglio, watch his Fast Start playlist. It's going to change your life and set you free. And understand, we don't want to the thing is, like, so Dan Buglio gives you that natural foundation. Tom Loud might give you that spiritual foundation. And the two of them together will help you understand this whole process of healing and help you understand your mind, help you understand these things. And again, a lot of the things I've spoken about are religious scrupulosity, and I mentioned some of the things about vocational discernment in a Catholic context. The thing also, we don't want to realize that we don't want to naturalize the spiritual or spiritualize the natural, because I believe there is genuinely spiritual things in my Catholic faith, and I believe that fully. So I want to make us understand, though, that as St. Thomas Aquinas in the Catholic faith says, grace builds upon nature. And I think that'll help you in understanding how to fit these two teachings together. And you don't want to say, okay, just because I feel relaxed doesn't mean I'm necessarily spiritually absolutely fine. You know what I'm saying? It's like there may be more to that, but the thing is, it doesn't mean that we should also hold our spirituality in a way that brings us like a terrible fear. That's not the thing. I mean, obviously, we don't want to confuse natural or mental safety for spiritual safety or sense of spiritual security, these type of things. We don't want to confuse these levels, but we want to understand that these things build upon each other. And it's like you're gonna drive yourself bonkers. It's going to be hard to, you want to have physical safety and security, you want to have mental safety and security, and you want to have spiritual safety and security. You want to have all these levels. And so I think that ultimately, we don't want to confuse these things. We don't want to say, okay, just because I now I'm not scared, just because you're not scared of being a priest, or just because you're not scared of being married, doesn't mean you should do one or the other. But if you free yourself from your fears, you're going to be clear in your head and know better what you should do. If you are clear about what you're doing in your colitis, it doesn't necessarily mean that God directly healed your colitis. But I mean, of course, everything comes from God anyway. If you obviously, like I do believe in God, everything's coming from God. So, it's understanding that these things work together, and understanding that. So it's getting a good perspective on this journey of healing, and learning about all the different ways that you can be healed and set free. And I wish that freedom for you, and I hope that this video helps you understand these things and find that healing that you've been looking for. Because the thing that, remember, the whole thing, Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else will be added to you. And the thing is, recover from fear and your body is going to follow. So that's the thing. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, that you learned something from it, and that you take my recommendation to study and reflect on the principles found in those videos. Doesn't mean doesn't mean I agree with everything that Tom Loud or Dan Buglio says about every single thing in the world. But it means that these guys can change your life, have changed my life, and that's something that needs to be shared, because people need to be set free. People need to be able to feel that freedom, because you could be living your whole life in misery and this type of thing, or you could get freedom and health back. So I hope this helps you wherever you're at. Again, I hope that this benefits you. This is Warren Herman. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below.